Hello everybody and welcome to this next video discussion as part of the RICS Tech Partner Programme. My name is Andrew Knight. I've been with RICS for over 11 years now and I sit within the standards, regulatory and thought leadership part of the organisation with my role looking at the effect of data and technology right across the built and natural environment, and with over 110,000 qualified members working worldwide right across the property lifecycle all the way through land, planning and development, construction, brokerage, finance, building operations, property management, end of life. It's obviously a very, very broad profession in terms of the activities. And indeed, our members work right across different asset types, from land itself through residential, commercial, alternative assets and infrastructure. So when you think of those dimensions of people working around the world, right across the life cycle, all across those different asset types, there's a huge impact now in a positive sense in terms of how data and technology can help the sector. And I'm really glad to have Garrett join me from LettsPay, so please do join me.
Hi, great to be here.
Pleasure to have you on. Now, before we get into the kind of bits and bytes and the solution and the value as well, it's always nice to get perhaps the human side. So it'd be great to hear about your kind of backstory, Garrett, in terms of you and your team.
Yeah, okay, great. So my backstory is I've been in payments most of my professional career. Started out as an insurance for a large insurance company, building their new premium collection platform and omni-channels, paid by card, direct debits, and bank transfers and still standing orders. And then I moved over to a social housing payment provider. I processed billions of pounds per annum and headed up their digital payments platform there. And did very successful, and it's a great time there. And then moved over to utility bills and helping utility bill providers with the new smart meters and interacting with those payments and being real-time payments. And at that point, I had the desire to actually have been building these platforms for large organisations and huge organisations collecting billions of pounds and millions of transactions. Why don't I build something myself for the smaller market and the SME market? And that's where the sort of idea grew, and the ideas, and speaking to a few people and investors in large areas. And one of my friends is a letting agent, and they said they've got a massive problem with this. I'm going into the reasons why those problems are there. But really, I quit my job. I invested all my time, hired a development team, and built LettsPay.
Great. Well, and it's interesting you raise that point about sort of, huge operations versus small ones. I mean, the majority of our RICS members do work in those smaller kind of organizations, SMEs, and obviously in this context, in terms of letting agents, they're not all huge companies. And clearly we want to make sure that data and technology is available both from a kind of usability and a price perspective to every size of business. Now, you talked about that wonderful keyword problems. What sort of problems is LettsPay solving for those kind of firms?
So LettsPay is, we've always thought of solving problems. You always hear around tech, there's a lot of tech companies that make problems that they solve themselves, and that the problems aren't really there. So we've always driven by the problem and solving the problem. And we'd identify 5 main problems for letting agents in the UK. Obviously each letting agent has varying degrees of how problematic these problems are. So they're in no particular order, but the first one really is banking. So the high street banks are removing client accounts or threatening to remove client accounts, and there's a big stress on letting agents and business as usual to process their payments. That's a key problem. We have efficiency savings. The traditional way of having a disconnected bank account to your client accounting system, whether that's integrated into CRM or not, is a huge onerous task, and then you've got to manage your maintenance and your fees and your contracts. And that leads on to the third problem, which is expensive manual errors. If you make a mistake, it could cost you a lot of money. You pay the wrong landlord the wrong amount, not just money, but reputation as well. You pay the wrong landlord the wrong amount, trust is gone. And trust is key when you're handling third-party money. Compliance, ever since 2019, compliance is a huge area in client money and handling that. You know, we answer that problem, we automate that problem, we solve that problem, you know, and then paying your landlords immediately. You know, I think landlords are being more demanding, tenants are being more demanding about how and when they pay their rent. Landlords are being more demanding about how and when they receive their payments. You know, and we solve those problems as well.
Good. So that's great that you've articulated those 5 kind of key areas. So to get down to the root of it, how's data and technology solving those, and how does LettsPay solve these problems using I'm guessing a mix of data and technology here?
Absolutely. So, you know, we always identified that client accounting is not cool, it's not fashionable, it's a necessary evil for letting agents to have. You know, we can't go out there and brand and go, you know, we're going to bring you loads of leads, we're going to bring you loads of things, you know, but we are going to solve, you know, with a paracetamol to the headache, they have a client accounting. So if we work backwards, paying your landlords immediately. So through our platform, we only process faster payments. So as soon as you hit pay your landlord's paid. Your contractors are paid, your fees are collected, their notifications are automatically sent to your landlord to give them a mini statement to say, this is what your payment received is, and this is a breakdown of that. Whether you've got one or many properties, it's all nicely segregated in a nice statement. Your suppliers and contractors, they get remittance advice immediately telling them that their invoice has been paid, and they can put that into their accounting system, streamline their journey. So, you know, we're not just trying to streamline your journey as a letting agent, it'd be your landlords, we're trying to streamline their journey, and even your suppliers in their journey. So keep the whole ecosystem happy.
Indeed. Now, you mentioned earlier that you know, the high street banks are, to use your words, kind of increasingly closing or reducing the ability to create client accounts. Why are the banks moving out of that particular kind of service provision?
It's all down to risk and reward for them. So, you know, it's high risk now. Anti-money laundering is becoming a bigger problem. You know, the likes of NatWest and Barclays have had huge multi-million-pound fines on them for not covering their backs and doing the due diligence that they deserve. And they've got it. You know, they are cutting the high-risk sectors. And as letting agents aren't registered entities, they see them as a high-risk challenge for them, with, you know, potentially large amounts of money being moved around various different accounts. Now, you know, you and I and letting agents know out there that letting agents do a great job, and they protect themselves, and they put the blocks in place, and there's no real evidence that the private rental sector is overrun by AML. You know, there's various studies that actually it's below average within the regulated areas, but the banks are scared. They don't want to do this, and they don't really get the reward from it. You know, they're not making much money from the private rental sector. You know, they don't see the relationship that you have this bank for 10, 15, 20 years. That's not enough for them anymore. So they are moving it back into being more of a banking provider and bank account, rather than a client accounting provider where there's added risk, added concern for them. And that's where we've stepped in, you know, and we've solved this problem. We do the client accounting banking for you. You know, we are, in essence, the bank provided. And this is all down to digital bank accounts and e-money accounts. So technology was invented, you know, in the late 90s, or the theory was invented in the late 90s. Took a long time to progress. 2008, banking crash came in. The UK government said, we need to support fintechs. Banks have too much power. We need to push innovation. E-money accounts is where we need to focus. And that's what we're built on. And that allows us to build a digital account per landlord. So it's in your letting agent's name. You're all registered in your letting agent's name. But each landlord has their own sort code and account number, and the tenant pays into there. We automate it because we're hooked into the payment and the bank. We know immediately when the tenant's paid, and then you can automate the payments out. and immediately pay your landlord straight away. So, you know, within 10 minutes, in 5 minutes, the tenant's paid the rent and you can pay your landlord. You know, I'm not saying that you would want to be constantly watching the account and acting on it, but, you know, same day, you can pay your landlord the same day rent's there within that journey. And because they're digital accounts, we can't lend against them, we can't loan against them, the money's theirs. It's like a digital safe. You put £100 in that digital safe, it sits there until you go in and take it out. So it's no interest, it's all nicely protected in the Bank of England, which is the safest place money can be in the UK.
So if I understand this correctly, Garrett, that the way you're providing this kind of valid alternative to the high street bank is effectively by layering these kind of digital bank accounts that still have a sort code, still have an account number, but they're sitting on top of what somebody might call a real bank account or a connection into the banking system, so that effectively you can create these digital, you know, client accounts that are labeled correctly from that compliance perspective, but then feed into the banking system, probably up on a much reduced number of accounts for the actual, you know, payments. But it gives you that audit trail, that compliance issue. Is that how it works? Because it sounds like almost a blend of prop tech and fintech, really.
Exactly, it is that. And you know, when we went into this and I spoke to the accelerators and focus groups, they're saying, what are you? Are you a prop tech or are you a fintech? I was like, why do I need to be? You know, one or the other? What? We're a bit of both. We're solving a property problem with fintech technology.
Yeah.
So it is across both. And then obviously with our banking layer, we have the accounting layer on top. So we do all of the automated reconciliation, we do all of the contractor payments, you know, and markups. We automatically take your 12%, 15% fees off that, or your monthly £99 fees off that. It's all automated off that. It's all reconciled. You just need to go in as a letting agent and go, right, I've got all these landlords, they've all got money, let's pay them.
Yeah, and I suppose that there's an agility here in the sense that actually setting up a new client account is presumably much quicker than, quote, the old-fashioned way anyway, because you've got that agility of creating this digital account fairly quickly.
That's it. As soon as the agents pass their compliance with us, which takes about 2 weeks, then we can ramp up a landlord account within 4 seconds. So, you know, as soon as you put it on the system, their sort code and account number's there. The tenant's message to say, here's the sort code and account number that you need to pay, and set that up into.
So Garrett, you mentioned that you're part of the nurture group. What does that mean for you in terms of sort of ability to go to market and be part of a kind of a larger kind of vehicle in that sense?
That's exactly right. So the nurture group's part, formerly known as eProp Services, and they are, you know, they look after the Property Guild and Fine and Country, as well as Starbury and Weekly Market, who's just come on board now. So they saw that LettsPay and what we're doing here with our 100+ clients is supporting the market and solving that headache of client accounting, and they wanted to be a part of it and support us through that. So they've given us a little cash boost just to allow us to expand our client-facing and support teams, but then as well as they've influenced us and helped us reach out to the wider market. So we are there to help more letting agents solve this problem, whether they're Property Guild members, Fine and Country members, or the wider integrations. Because, like I said previously, you know, client accounting is not cool, it's not fun. You just want it as slick as possible. So, you know, we're speaking to a lot of CRMs at the moment to integrate, share data, share this to streamline the journey as much as possible.
Yeah, I was certainly going to raise that point about integration, because one of the challenges I think our members feel, and I think it's perhaps a byproduct of the level of innovation in prop tech, whatever we want to call this sector, is that there's a danger that our member firms will end up with lots of different systems, that they end up with multiple logins and actually end up with a situation where they're almost less efficient because they've got 4 or 5 different systems to deal with. And from what you're saying, that you're very aware of that and talking to the other systems that typically somebody will have in a letting agent. And bear in mind, a lot of them will be doing sales as well. So they'll be having various systems, won't they, to try and knit together.
Yeah, I mean, we speak to a lot of agents out there, and it's terrifying how much tech they've got now. You know, it's great that they've got these innovations in tech, but then you're keying in the property address in 3, 4, 5 different systems. That you're fraught with manual errors and trying to get that together. So, you know, we've always been focused on integration. We started our lives as you know, integration is key, and working with these partners. You know, we've got some great integrations now. You know, we're integrating to TechLet, which is a great two-way integration, and it's 24/7 servicing for the tenants and landlords. So they've got their own portals, they manage their own pre-tenancy and full CRM journey through to end of tenancy, and the arrears process is just all nicely streamlined. So there's very little. You know, all you have to do with LettsPay is confirm that you want these landlords to be paid, and which is exactly where we're lying. You know, we want to solve that compliance, that banking headache, and efficiencies, and if we can do that with API integrations, then that's great. And we've also got a good integration with Apex 27 as well, and that's a very similar journey. You know, you process the CRM, you process the tenancy through the CRM, all the data comes to us, the scheduling comes to us, and that you just have to log it into LettsPay to make the payments at end of day or weekly, however you want to do your payment run. But the payments are made immediately to your landlords.
So in terms of kind of rolling out and growing the business, have you taken a kind of regional approach across the UK just to manage the kind of level of support and that sort of thing, or is it fairly kind of UK wide at the moment?
So we wanted to get our compliance as, agreed across the UK. You know, we worked hard. We worked with all the CMP compliance teams and insurers in the UK, in England, and we had to get those badges, and it's been great, and they've all supported us. We worked with the Scottish government and get approval up there, because obviously they do it slightly differently in Scotland, and then we work with it with Wales as well to get all of our badges to make sure that we can service everyone within the UK. You know, one thing I never wanted to do was, we've got great product for England and Wales, but Scotland, sorry guys, we can't help you. So, you know, we wanted to for everyone at the same time. So everyone in the UK has the ability to utilise the benefit of LettsPay.
Indeed, and I think that also echoes a point which we always like to emphasise, because our members are working to, you know, various compliance standards, either legal frameworks or our standards, and clearly we're very keen that data and tech doesn't exist in some kind of parallel universe where it doesn't recognise that it has to work within real world standards, real world regulations. So it's great to hear that you've gone down that path of working with the devolved administrations to make sure it is legal in all those areas. So to get your crystal ball out, perhaps as a last question, Gareth, what do you see the future of client accounting in terms of how letting agents can improve even more and get the process, you know, even more robust than it is already?
You know, it's a lot of what we've talked around. It's got to be streamlined now. You know, the days of downloading a bank statement and uploading it into accounting software, manually reconciling, you know, a huge. I'm terrified about some of the sizes in the States of some of the client accounts that we've been working with our clients. You know, there's millions of pounds in there, and you've got to reconcile that on a daily basis to get your pay. It's a huge headache. That doesn't need to be there. It needs to be resolved. And you know, with the CMP regulations as well, you've got to account for every penny that's in that account now. And to make that happen and to make that secure, you can't just sit on lost transactions and just say, oh, I don't know where that money's come from. The tenant's still gone in arrears. I'll wait until the tenant rings up when they moan about it's going in arrears. You can't. We shouldn't live in that world now. You know, you've got the data, you've got the technology now that you should know where every penny comes into the account, who that belongs to. And we know the landlord is, because you paid into that sort code and account number. So you just have to pick 2 or 3 of those tenants that have paid that, or worst case, ring them up and say, did you make this payment? But you should need to know that. So I think the future is these isolated accounts per landlord, because it gives you extra protection, it gives you all the security that you need, and you don't have that waking up in the middle of the night, cold sweat, going, I'm looking after hundreds of thousands of pounds, millions of pounds in the client account, and I'm not sure what's right and what's wrong. And also, you're probably paying fortune for accountants to manage this or to help you out trying to find these problems, or you're running the risk of a huge fine. So So, I think we're going to move more with smarter tech to help you out with that client account. And integrations as well. Like you said, these agents and letting agents with 5, 6, 7, 8 bits of tech that don't speak to each other, that's got to stop. We've got to have a streamlined journey. I'm always of the opinion that you need companies that have their expert niche, and that's why LettsPay will never move out of client accounting. We're not going to branch into CRM world. We're not going to branch into landlord portals. That's not what we do. We are purely focused on the client accounting, and we integrate into smart partners that are experts in their field, because you don't want to get a dilution of skill base and technology, because in the boardroom then you always have a fight around which is the most important product. LettsPay is easy. LettsPay is the most important product, and it always will be, and that's where all of our investment and time will go into.
Indeed, as you say, I suppose that those two key issues are that integration piece, really, and making sure that the efficiencies of platforms like LettsPay can be unleashed, and you don't get this double entry of mistakes moving from one system to the next, and it sounds like this blend of kind of property technology and financial technology has a big role to play across the whole sector. So for today, Garrett, that was fascinating, and thanks very much for your time today, and I look forward to catching up with you later in the year, perhaps.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Pleasure.